Hello, my name is Adrienne Washington from Baltimore, Maryland, and this is my presentation on interpersonal communication for Human Services 508, Section B23 with Dr. Palmer. Next slide. This slide displays all of the topics that will be presented in this presentation. Next slide. My overarching goal is to enlarge my conversation through utilizing the different levels of communication, effective listening, and removing myself when needed. Next slide. Peterson says that communication is the oil that lubricates the engine of relationships. Without it, it will seize and die. There are two levels of communication. Level 1 is to basically get to the point. Level 2 is to go deeper and to build stronger relationships and bonds. They also present dialogue in communication. Dialogue has two Greek words in it, dia and logos. Dia meaning to go through, logos meaning meaning or understanding. Therefore, dialogue is actually communication between two persons with the meaning to enlarge, the meaning that emerges through all the participants. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation affects my overarching goal by allowing me to dig deeper into my relationships and my communication. Basically, I need to do level 2 communication. I also need to work on my dialogue, as well as understanding when to use different levels of communication. For example, in my work, I am an administrative coordinator. There are times when I need to use level 1 communication, and there are times when I need to use level 2 communication. In my career as a counselor, I would understand that level 2 communication would be needed between myself and my counselees. When I work on my relationship with God, that will be a level 2 communication. I need to pray and ask for those things that I need in my life, but I also need to learn how to listen, build a deeper and stronger relationship with Him. Next slide. There are different factors that affect interpersonal communication: culture, family, experiences, and relationships. In our course, we completed a Uniquely You assessment. It used a chart of DISC. D is for active or task-oriented. I is for active, people-oriented. S, passive, task-oriented. And C, passive, people-oriented. When I completed the assessment, I ranged on an IS and a CIS, which pretty much says that I am a people pleaser, a servant, I work to encourage others, and I'm pretty much a people person. Next slide. This shows that my personality is more so of a helper, a giver, a servant. I work to please others and more than I please myself. Others may see this as causing stress in my life due to the overwhelming tasks that I present. Next slide. The pros are: I work well in groups, I relate well to others as well as they are able to relate to me, I stand out and I can also blend in, and I'm very giving. The cons: I'm passive, emotional, which can be seen as both positive and negative, indecisive, and also pushovers. Generally, that means that others take my kindness for weakness because I like to give, and they can tell that that is the personality that I have. Next slide. There are barriers in communication, some of which are physical, some are psychological, and we learn through our text that when you communicate, you use both inhaling and exhaling, which will be reviewed in the next slides to come. Also, the biggest barrier of them all is that people believe that when you are a listener, you do not have as much power as the talker. The talker and the listener both have equal power. Next slide. Inhaling is perception and listening. In perception and listening, there are three sub-processes. Selection, which are the cues in which you choose to pick up on. Organization, which is how you organize the cues. And inference making, your final conclusion. Cues may come from cognitive schemata, which is the organization of the cues about people, places, or things. Person prototypes, which is the generalizations you make about a person based on your experiences, your relationships, and the media. Scripts. These are the sequences of actions that you continue to use in your day-to-day experiences. So, for example, they used in the book, when you go to a restaurant, you know from scripts that you are to give a tip to the waiter or waitress. Next slide. Our perceptions and assumptions. Burley Allen states that our perceptions about a person, a situation, or a subject can influence our reception and how much we will pay attention. If you feel as though you may not get something out of the conversation with someone, or if there are past experiences that may cause memories of pain or any other negative feelings, you may assume that you're going to receive negative information from the conversation, and usually you do not listen effectively. In the movie Fireproof that we watched, Kat and Caleb used perceptions and assumptions that negatively affected their relationship. Kat assumed that her husband was going to eat with his friends, so she didn't fix him anything, which led to an argument leading to their relationship's demise. Next slide. Exhaling. Exhaling is expression and disclosure. In exhaling, you have to reveal yourself, which is also known as disclosing. This will be under the category of openness. In the text, it has openness as O equals SAT. O for openness, S for self-awareness, A for acceptance, and T for trust. In Prathyp and Anwar's study, they found that effective interpersonal relationships are built on solid foundations of trust. In your expressions, you should be sure to be clarified in your speech, as well as avoid self-sabotage. Be careful of what you choose to give to other people about yourself. This was also shown in Kat and Caleb's relationship in Fireproof. Deception, otherwise seen as lying. There are 6 motives in deception: egoism, benevolence, utility, exploitation, malevolence, and regress. 3 of which are positive and 3 of which are negative. The 3 positives may be seen as benevolence, egoism, and utility, whereas the negatives are exploitation, malevolence, and regression. Next slide. The consequences of deception. There are unintended consequences of deception. Stewart states that oftentimes in relationships or in situations where deception is used, the outcome will show that you were better off telling the truth. There is always going to be a negative consequence when using deception, and it will also be damaging to your relationship. Next slide. My action plan is to become a dialogical listener. I already use empathy when listening to others. It is time that I am sure that I can portray myself effectively to the others so that they have a better understanding of what I am saying, as well as I would like to have a better understanding of what they are saying. Also, I would like to listen enough to have meaningful responses. Removing myself. Oftentimes when I am listening to a person, I come up with things in my mind of events or experiences that I may have gone through that relate to that person's concepts or their issue. I need to remove myself so that I can better listen to what they are saying instead of think about all the things that I've had happen to me. And I also need to be open yet careful about what I disclose. In closing, enlarging the conversation helps me to see how I relate to others, as well as how I should be cautious about how open I am. I need to learn how to serve God and not man. I need to understand that I do not have less power because I'm listening and not speaking. And also, communication requires listening and speaking. There is to be no one-sided relationships. It's just like when I pray to God. I pray and I pray, but I do not take the time to listen. This causes me to have a less enlarged conversation with Him, as well as a relationship. Thank you.